Hello everyone, welcome to the second session of my lecture. Myself, Dr. SINJU PAUL, presently working as an assistant professor in the Department of Conservative Dentistry and Endodontics, Annoor Dental College. So today the topic for my lecture is regarding management of deep caries lesion. What is a deep caries lesion? It's a caries process that has penetrated deep into the dentin with possible pulpal exposure. Now, how do a caries progress? When the caries penetrate the enamel, it reaches the dentino-enamel junction. From the dentino-enamel junction, the caries spreads rapidly, and since it is the least resistant area to caries. Now, how does a caries advance in dentin? First of all, the weak organic acid demineralizes the dentinal layer. Secondly, the organic material of dentin, particularly collagen, gets degenerated and then dissolves. And finally, there will be loss of structural integrity followed by bacterial invasion. Now, there are different zones for a caries dentin. Mainly, it can be divided into affected dentin and infected dentin. In affected dentin itself, it can be divided into two zones, necrotic zone and a contaminated zone. And infected dentin consists of a demineralized zone and a translucent zone. Now, to know more about the management of deep caries lesions, first of all, we have to know what is an affected dentin and what is an infected dentin. So, the inner affected dentin consists of very few bacteria, which is remineralizable, vital, sensitive, and useful. Whereas the outer infected dentin consists of numerous amount of bacteria, which is not remineralizable. It is dead, without sensation, and not at all useful. So it is mandatory we remove all the infected dentin that is soft and preserve the underlying affected dentin before restoration. So in this picture, you can see the outer infected dentin, which is soft, which has to be removed because it is not able to remineralize and consists of numerous amount of bacteria. So we have to remove first of all the infected dentin and preserve the affected dentin. Now, what is the deciding factor that confirms whether a teeth has to go for a root canal treatment or not? It's nothing but the remaining dentin thickness. Now, what is the remaining dentin thickness? It's nothing but approximately 2 millimeter of dentin or an equivalent thickness of material that exists to protect the pulp. So different authors says that 1.5 millimeter of remaining dentin thickness is accepted, but at least 0.5 to 1 millimeter must be there. Now, a word on tooth vitality. As we all know, there are different measures to test whether a tooth is vital or not. In that, we have a thermal test, which is of two types, heat test and cold test. To know whether a tooth is vital or not, the best method is our cold test. But if the peculiar tooth is showing increased response to heat, means that there is some underlying pathology. So what is the criteria to prove irreversible pulpitis? 10 seconds of lingering pain after cold testing a tooth. This is a proof that it is irreversible pulpitis. Now, there are different techniques in cold test itself, different materials to test it. In that, we have our endofrost and ethyl chloride. But it's always better you use your endofrost because its temperature is very less and not ethyl chloride. Because the mechanism of cold test is that however lower the temperature you get, the better results you get. And beware of false positive results in the teeth with extreme percussion or palpation sensitivity. Now, when coming to diagnosis, if the peculiar tooth does not have any exposure, you can do your conventional cavity preparation and restore. Or the second option is, if it is deep, you can proceed with indirect pulp capping. But if the tooth has got a pulpal exposure and if the tooth is vital, you can proceed with a direct pulp capping. And if the tooth is non-vital, you have to go for root canal treatment. Now moving on to indirect pulp capping. What is indirect pulp capping? So in this radiograph, you can see the arrow pointing. This is a carious exposure which is approximating pulp, but it is not tender on percussion and there is no underlying pathology. In such a case, you need not go for a root canal treatment if the patient is asymptomatic. What you can do is you can excavate the caries, remove all the infected dentine and keep the affected dentine there, which is hard and remineralizable. Now you can restore and wait. So this is my own case where the patient reported to my clinic for a root canal treatment. And when I checked, the patient was asymptomatic. The tooth was not tender on percussion and there was no underlying pathology, just the caries was approximating pulp. So as a method of trial, with a consent from the patient, I removed all the caries, soft caries and restored with glass ionomous cement. It has been 6 months now till the patient is asymptomatic. Now, what are the indications for indirect pulp capping? You cannot do in every tooth an indirect pulp capping. There are certain indications. Deep carious lesion near the pulp tissue, but not involving it. There should not be any mobility, no history of spontaneous toothache, no tenderness on percussion, no radiographic evidence in pulp pathology, and no root resorption or radicular disease. But there are certain contraindications too. If there are radiographic evidence of pulpal pathology, if the patient is having spontaneous history of toothache, and if the tooth is sensitive to percussion, never go for an indirect pulp capping. In these conditions, you will have to proceed with a root canal treatment. Now, what are the different factors on which success of indirect pulp capping depends on? First of all, it depends on the age of the patient, size of exposure, restorative procedure, and evidence of pulp vitality. Now, moving on to direct pulp capping. Now, what is direct pulp capping? It is a procedure that involves the placement of a biocompatible material over the site of pulpal exposure to maintain the vitality and promote its healing. So in this picture, you can see a very pinpoint, minute exposure. In such a cases, if the patient is asymptomatic, you need not go for a root canal treatment. You can do a direct pulp capping. But there are certain indications in which a direct pulp capping can be done. The mechanical exposure, it should be very small. Small mechanical exposure of the pulp during tooth preparation or a traumatic injury. But the contraindications are there should not be any wide pulpal exposure. There should not be any radiographic evidence of pulpal pathology and history of spontaneous pain or presence of bleeding at the exposure site. In these conditions, you cannot do a direct pulp capping. Here in this picture, you can see a pinpoint bleeding where you can avoid a root canal treatment when the patient is asymptomatic. Now, what are the factors that depend on the success of direct pulp capping? Here also, it depends on the age of the patient, type of exposure, size of the exposure, and history of pain. Now, what are the materials used for pulp protection? So, these materials, first of all, must have some ideal properties. It must insulate the pulp. It must protect the pulp in case of deep carious lesion. It must act as a barrier to prevent micro leakage and prevent the bacteria and toxins from affecting the pulp. So these are the materials commonly used: resin bonding agents, cavity bases, calcium hydroxide, and mineral trioxide aggregate or MTA. Now, where are the resin bonding agents used? It can be used mainly to seal the dentinal tubules and also treat the dentinal hypersensitivity. And cavity base is the main property is that it can provide something known as a thermal insulation. Now, a common calcium hydroxide cement, it has got a basic pH of 11. So it has both antibacterial and break down the acidic bacterial byproducts. And due to this pH, it creates an environment that is conducive to the formation of something known as reparative dentin. And another important advantage is that it mobilizes the growth factors from the dentinal matrix and causes new formation of new layer of dentin, and also it's biocompatible. Moving on to MTA, or a mineral trioxide aggregate. These are silicate cements, and the important property is that it has got antibacterial property. It is biocompatible and has a high pH. And the main property is that it is capable to aid in the release of bioactive dentin matrix proteins. So these are the materials that are used for direct pulp capping. So with this, I'm concluding with my lecture. See you next time with a different topic. Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care.